This is MTG Burgeoning, and in this video we are going to update and upgrade our Feather the Redeemed EDH deck. Thank you for joining us for this installment of the Up and Up series. Today we are updating and upgrading Feather the Redeemed. In the description of this video, you'll find a deck tech for Feather. You will also find the most up-to-date deck list for her, in addition to this build's video primer series. As a shout-out, I'd like to mention Cassio Oliveira, a fellow Feather fan who helped to sculpt the vision for these changes. Thank you, Cassio. And without any further ado, let's get on to some changes. We've got some cards going in. That means some cards coming out. And the first card going into this Feather deck today, it is Fiery Inscription. Here we have an enchantment for 2 and 1 red mana. And when it ETBs, the ring tempts us. Now, we don't have a great deal of ring symmetry in this build, so we're not going to spend much time talking about what the ring can do. Why this card is being included into the 99 of this Feather build is not for its ring temptation, but for whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell, Fiery Inscription deals 2 damage to each opponent. So if we were to take away the ring part of this card and switch from enchantment to creature, what would that creature be? Well, that would be the card we're replacing, and that is Guttersnipe. Guttersnipe does exactly what Fiery Inscription does outside of the ring temptation, except an enchantment is so much more difficult to remove from the battlefield than a creature, so let's get rid of Guttersnipe and replace it with a card that makes it even more longer lasting on the battlefield. That sounded better in my head before I said it, so we'll just see how that comes back on the playback. All right, with card number 2, we have, the Firebrand Archer. Here we have a human archer that's 2-1 for 1 and 1 red mana, and whenever we cast a non-creature spell, Firebrand Archer deals 1 damage to each opponent. Yes, we do have a lot of instant and sorcery spells in this build, and we do have some non-creature spells that are not instants or sorceries as well. Let's maximize the amount of damage we can do to our opponents by including some cards that allow us to do so. So with that in mind, Firebrand Archer is going in and taking the place of Thermo Alchemist. Now this 0/3 human shaman with Defender costs the same mana as Firebrand Archer with 1 and 1 red mana. We can tap Thermo Alchemist to deal 1 damage to each opponent, and whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell, we untap it. So overall, we should get more bang for our damage-dealing buck with Firebrand Archer than we can with Thermo Alchemist, because we have more non-creature spells overall on this build than we do instants and sorceries. So Thermo Alchemist is out, and the Firebrand Archer is in. Card 3 coming in. Oh, that's going to spoil card number 4. Card number 3 going in, it is the Kessig Flamebreather. This is Firebrand Archer with a different body. It's 1 and 1 red mana, has the exact same lines of text, but is a 1/3 instead of a 2/1. So now we're doubling up with our non-creature spells, dealing 1 point of damage to each of our opponents, and that human shaman is going in, and it's going to replace the Vanguard of Brimaz. Here we had a 2/2 cat soldier with vigilance for 2 white mana, and whenever we cast a spell that targets Vanguard of Brimaz, we would create a 1/1 white cat soldier creature with vigilance. So this is a little bit outside of what we typically do here during our Up and Up series, is we try to target niches inside of a build or symmetries or themes that are in the deck, and we try to identify a card that's better than an existing card in that build and then just straight out replace it. Well, sometimes themes have to overlap in order to make the overall build that much stronger. And I do think that including Kessig Flamebreather over Vanguard of Brimaz is going to have a much farther a much farther reaching impact on the overall game. We are directly affecting our opponent's life totals every time we cast a non-creature spell with Kessig Flamebreather, where here, with the Vanguard of Brimaz, not only do we not do direct damage, but we have to have a spell that's going to target the Vanguard, which in this build is going to be an instant or a sorcery, and in that way we're going to create a 1/1 token, which, let's face it, it may not be able to swing in to deal the damage that we need it to. It could act as a potential chump blocker, of course, but overall, from a more proactive stance versus reactive, I think Kessig Flamebreather is going to do more work in this build than this Cat Soldier does currently. We will see if we have to come back and have Feather featured in another Up and Up video, putting the Vanguard back in. Well, then that's just what we're going to do to keep our oh-so-favorite Boros Angel happy. All right, the next card going in, card number 4, as you can see on the backside, we've got Ondu Sky Ruins. So that can only... Oh, look at that. We spoiled card number 5. All right, so with Ondu Sky Ruins being on the back, the front could only be Ondu Inversion. And here we have a sorcery for 6 and 2 white mana that will destroy all non-land permanents. We don't have a card of this magnitude in this build right now. But if we think about it, if we step outside of the actual Feather build itself to ask ourselves what is a kind of card, what type of card could we include, if necessary, to reset the board if needed? Well, Ondu Inversion is going to do that. Now, the price is a little high at 6 and 2 white mana. That's nothing to turn our noses out. That's not walking around mana by any stretch of the imagination. But we pay that extra mana just in case we need to put this into play on the other side, which is the Ondu Sky Ruin side. So what we have here is a land that comes into play that taps for 1 white mana, making sure that we have our colored mana to cast our instants and sorcery spells during an entire round of turns. That could be, actually, that is more important than the potential of overpaying for a reset the board removal spell like Ondu Inversion. So we'll swallow the extra mana to reset the board just for the purposes of having an additional land that we could put into play if we are in the early or mid portions of the game and we're missing our land drops. So that is acceptable for us, and with that in mind, we're going to include Ondu Inversion and the backside, which gives us a white mana, and since we are adding that card in as a card that can give us the 1 white mana, we're going to take out a regular Basic Plains. Because a Basic Plains is going to tap to add for 1 white mana. That's exactly what the backside of Ondu Inversion can do, but it also provides us the ability to cast it for its sorcery side and pretty much reset the battlefield. All right, we're down to our very last change here for Feather, and as you can see, the card number 5 has been spoiled like card number 4 before it. All right, so if you know Lost Veils on the backside, then you know what the front side is. It is the Dowsing Dagger. Here we have an artifact that is an equipment. The mana value is 2, with an equip cost of 2 as well. And when Dowsing Dagger ETBs, target opponent creates 2 0/2 green plant creature tokens with Defender. We don't care about these tokens. They're 0/2. They have Defender. I mean, granted, we probably don't want to give them to the Aristocrats player. We don't want to help them to win the game. We definitely want to stay away from doing that. But in a vacuum outside of Aristocrats, we're not really worried about 0/2 with Defenders. So with that in mind, equipped creature is going to get +2/+1. And whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, we may transform Dowsing Dagger. So slapping this equipment onto Feather, that flying being a oh-so-nice way of nice form of evasion to swoop right over our opponent's ground-laden armies, deal the combat damage that's needed while carrying the dagger, then we can transform and put onto the battlefield this land, which is called Lost Veil. We can tap to add 3 mana of any 1 color to our mana pool. A fantastic way to rev up the mana production for us in this Boros Feather spell-slinging build. Dowsing Dagger could be a very sneaky addition to this type of build, and with it going into play, with its ability to buff to bump up Feather a little bit, swing in, deal the combat damage, have that transform into the Veil, with the idea of getting that land onto our side of the battlefield eventually. We're going to take out Inspiring Vantage. So here is our Boros fast land that comes into play tapped unless we control 2 or fewer other lands. More often than not, we're playing this land and it's going into play tapped. It's the odds are against us that this card is in our opening hand so that we can tap it for mana immediately upon arrival, which in this build, like many, many others, you want to make sure you can use your lands as soon as possible. So yes, we have a couple of hoops to jump through with Dousing Dagger to get to Lost Veil, but I'll take that and what Lost Veil can end up giving us over Inspiring Vantage every day of the week and twice on Friday Night Magic. All right, there you have it, MTG BC. 5 cards in and 5 cards out for our Feather the Redeemed EDH deck. Let me know in the comment sections your thoughts about these changes. This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic.